You guys are loving my fact check, so here is part 3 of fact checking Robert F. Kennedy Jr. during the presidential debate. If you haven't seen parts 1 and 2, make sure you go do that first. And this segment, we're going to talk about abortion. You guys liked when I showed the video first and then got into the fact checking, so I'm going to do that in just a minute or two. There are 2 clips back to back.
Could there be any limit on a late-term abortion?
Yeah, I believe it should be limited. Late term should be limited. Absolutely, that's what was permitted under Roe v. Wade. That's what every European country has the same law, and that law makes sense. If that baby is fully viable outside of the womb, the state has an absolute interest in protecting it.
Position on Roe v. Wade?
Yeah, I've spent probably more energy protecting medical freedom than any other leader in this country. And bodily autonomy. So I think that abortion should be the choice of a woman, and that I worry about state involvement until the baby reaches viability. And I think the states have an increasing viability outside the womb, and I think the states have an increasing interest in protecting that child. My policy on abortion is called more choice, fewer abortions. And that's because 52% of the abortions in this country, the woman says that economic considerations played the key role in her decision. Every abortion is a tragedy. Many women don't want to have abortions. Over half of them have them because they do not believe that they can care for that child for financial reasons. I don't think that should happen in this country. I have a child care program. As I talked to you before, every dollar that we spend on weapons provides about 2 jobs. Every $1 million that we spend on weapons provides 2 jobs, creates 2 jobs. Every $1 million that we spend on child care creates 22 jobs. It's good for our economy. It's good for choice. It's good for limiting abortions, and that's what I'll do as president.
This is what he said when talking about late-term abortion. He said, I believe it should be limited. Late-term should be limited. Absolutely. That's what was permitted under Roe v. Wade. I kind of thought that this was well known, but there was talk about what Roe v. Wade actually covered, and so it did ban late-term abortions in most cases. Then he made the statement that every European country has the same law, like the same protections that Roe v. Wade had. Now, there is one exception to this. So Poland actually allows abortion in very, very limited circumstances, like life of the mother type thing. Now listen, there are like 5 countries that are really the size of small cities in Europe that technically ban abortion too. So technically 6 countries in Europe ban abortion, but the average person would look at this map and say, only Poland does, and that's most of Europe. I want to be technical in this series, so most people would say, yeah, every country in Europe, but that's not really true when you're getting into the technicality. Poland doesn't allow abortion. Next, he said 52% of abortions in this country, the woman says economic considerations played a key role in her decision. This is true, and it's just one of those things that every source you look at is going to have a different number. So Dr. Dawn Stacy actually has a medical paper out talking about the reasons that women get abortions. 40% say that it's because they're not financially prepared. Then 12% say that they are unable to provide a good life. And most people, when they think about that, it's because of financials too. So I don't know if he just added those 2 numbers together and that's your 52%. Or another study, another medical journal says 73% of women reported getting an abortion because they could not afford a baby. But the reason that he brought this up is to say that over half of abortions are because of economic reasons, and no matter what study you look at, that's true. This one took me forever to research, but he said every $1 million that we spend on weapons provides 2 jobs, creates 2 jobs. Every $1 million that we spend on childcare creates 22 jobs. Kind of like the last one, depending on the source you look at, and there's a lot of evidence that shows that an investment in childcare provides more jobs than an investment in like our military. Again, getting into the technicality, I couldn't find an actual study or report that showed exactly what he's talking about, $1 million on weapons and $1 million on childcare. The closest thing I found was a study from Brown University where they actually looked at $1 million spent on federal defense, which that created 6.9 jobs for every million, And then they break it up into education too. So if you invest $1 million in elementary and secondary education, that provides 19.2 jobs. Out of all their categories that they have listed, that is the only one that comes close to childcare. So that's kind of why I pulled that number. I did want to provide you with one other source. So Equitable Growth noted in one economic model, for example, fully subsidizing childcare costs so that parents paid nothing rather than an average of $89 per week, increase the rate of maternal employment from 37% to 87%. Again, I can't find the actual technical numbers that he is looking at. If you can find it, please send it to me. But the idea is the same, that an investment in childcare gives us more jobs than an investment into our military. But as always, let me know your thoughts and make sure you're following me for more.